Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. And just so everybody knows too, I'm sure people will be filtering in. Like, we don't want this to be like a slideshow by, just like sounding like robots up here. So we're going to have to cover some things, but then we really want it to be like give and take. And then for everybody that doesn't know us, obviously Sean Ragen, Corey Dutko, Dutko Ragen Homes and Investments team. We've been in real estate since 2007 and 2008, basically right out of college. Started at a big team, broke off in 2012 to do our own thing. And traditional real estate along with investing has really been kind of like what our focus is. Corey runs more of our personal investments, where I'm more running part of the sales team. But we've done everything from wholesaling. We probably have done 30 or so wholesales. We've done 170 flips and builds. No, you're good.
Sounds like competition.
That's my head designer.
And we have a rental portfolio of about 17 doors and help clients build out rental portfolios as well. So we kind of do a bit of it all in the real estate. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Hopefully 16 doors here soon. But yeah, no, that's it. I think you covered most of it. Yeah, just like last time, I want to make this collaborative. There'll be people trickling in, but let's just have an open conversation. This topic's quite a bit different. It's more about really networking and kind of building your team of vendors or resources or partners to kind of execute a deal from start to finish. So let's jump into it. And then,
sweet. So what is a dream team? Obviously, we all know no one succeeds alone, right? It's all about the partners and service providers, contractors, and others that perform basic tasks to help investing in real estate. Some of them will be quote unquote superstars, and we have one in the room here for us. Allison is a superstar that we have worked. I mean, hey, it's the truth,
So part of the reason for these is to kind of get that dream team or that network going, just like we had with Allison and a lot of other people. But yeah, no one succeeds alone. It's a lot of work, and teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. And how do you identify superstars? I think the biggest thing that we've kind of seen is, one, be one yourself, right? If you can help people, we like to come from a place of contribution. So being able to provide value in everything that we do, even if it's something that we're not necessarily going to monetize, we kind of pay it forward. And we have seen that go a long way. Like it says here, right? Givers gain. So I think it's true at just a core principle of you can't outgive, right? Stuff will come back. And that's really one of the foundational pieces of kind of how we've built our companies throughout the years, and really just tried to help people, and then it just comes back full circle. So I think that's really a big piece of it. And again, connecting with, I think really how we started too was like connecting with people that already owned businesses and were already doing things that we didn't know how to do it, and that we knew we needed to get to know them, and just get into relationship, right? Like that's really the biggest thing. I think relationships is what makes the world go round, and that's the biggest differentiating factor than anything. No one has the exact same relationship, so how can you provide value for the most amount of people, and then hopefully those people will also provide value for you with whatever you're looking to endeavor in.
For sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, Gary Keller always tells us that your net worth is in your network, and so like treat people the right way, always operate from a place of integrity, and then be a connector of people, and then your network kind of slowly builds and grows from there. If you just do the right thing, and every time we're in a relationship or a conversation, you're trying to connect people. Oh, like what can you bring to the table that my client might need, or what do you know that I don't? How can we collaborate?
Yep. And I'd say this is probably the page that we want to spend the most time on, and just kind of expand on that a little deeper. When you kind of look at like what is your dream team, right? From investing, you've got the finding the deal, fixing the deal, and funding the deal, right? Like those are really like the main three pieces of the puzzle.
Think about selling the deal. Selling the deal.
Oh, of course, yeah, selling the deal. I mean, obviously you got to dispose of it as well. But really, like those are like the main pieces of what happens. And obviously there's like, things in between, like other vendors like settlement agents and like what they can provide. So one thing that we do, obviously we work with Universal Title here, highly recommended. There's great attorneys. We've also worked with MBH in Old Town. Ryan Stewart is a phenomenal settlement attorney. They can be worth their weight in gold, right? They'll do, sometimes, I mean, if you give them business, they'll do free title searches, right? So make sure that there's no encumbrances, nothing out there, that it's clean title. Those are big pieces. But really when you kind of break it down from how do we find deals, the biggest thing that we have found is networking with other agents, hence Allison and others, like agents are a big source of business because typically they're first to sellers. And not everybody knows how to get rid of a home that needs a lot of work or is in disrepair. And those folks may not want to go on the market, but they need to find a way to dispose of it and make it as easy as possible for that seller, right? And there's a lot, now you see big companies like Open Door, obviously Zillow Offers and Redfin iBuyer, like they've all kind of shut down a little bit because they were operating on much thinner margins, but they were jumping into the industry because they saw that there was a need there. So we want to be that local need to be able to fill that void, and agents are a big way to get potential deals. And another one is, wholesaling, right? Wholesalers, those are, Brian's a wholesaler. We've got other wholesalers that we work with. They are another, I would say, huge avenue outside of agents. Wholesalers are a great way to get business because they're out there marketing. Some of these wholesalers have big budgets. I'm sure some of you guys have seen like the large players in the area, like Four Brothers and Market Pro Homes.
Express.
They're Express home buyers. They have TV commercials. These people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to try to identify and locate motivated sellers throughout the area, and getting on their buyer list to see their distribution of opportunities has been, I would say, we probably, over the years, out of the 170 so projects we've done, we've probably bought half of them from wholesalers and half of them from agent connections.
At least 25 to 30% from wholesalers. So we actually are closing on a deal on Thursday that this wholesale fee, it's actually a wholesale. So this person bought it, cleared it out, cleaned it, put it on the market a week later. And we brought the buyer, it's a cash buyer. Our client's buying it. We would have bought it, but our client wanted to pursue it. We're closing in 6 days. So again, having a great title company. We literally ratified on Friday, closing on Thursday. So Universal Title is turning that around really quickly in the title workforce. They have a $180,000 wholesale fee. So they bought it for $455, went on the market at $595, and got escalated up with 6 offers in 24 hours to $631.
And that wholesaler or that person has owned it for 9 days?
9 days. Well, 9 days when we ratified, so call it 17 days total. Yeah.
So they find it.
I don't know. I wish I would have beat him to it, to be honest with you. And it's in my neighborhood, so it really is really tough.
You saw that one?
On Landgrave? Yeah.
In Springfield?
Yeah. So our title company, the attorney David, who might join us here in a minute, called me as soon as they got the contract. Said, "Hey, I want to put this on your radar." They bought it 8 days ago for $455, and they wanted to make sure because there's fraudulent claims going on right now. I guess with vacant homes and vacant land, where people are actually transferring the title illegally and then trying to force sale it quickly before anybody catches on. So he wanted to kind of get a little background. But I don't know the whole history. I don't know if we market to that neighborhood. They didn't call us. I wish they would have. But I know that the seller was in a pinch, needed to sell quickly, was more concerned about ease than price. And that's a great wholesale fee. But I would say going back to it, we probably bought 25 to 30% of our personal projects from wholesalers over the years, another half on the market, and then another half from other agents that bring us, deals off market.
And I would also say some of the best deals, we don't have personal connections with estate attorneys. That's something that we want to ramp up. It's kind of hard. I feel like it's not the easiest thing to break into, but we work with agents that have connections with estate attorneys. And I would also say those are some of the best deals that you can get when they'll bring them to you. Some estate attorneys require that the homes have to be on the market for 7 days, much like foreclosures back in the day. They want the full market exposure, but we've had some success where the estate attorney's like, hey, if we get a number that we're happy with, we'll take it. Just last year, the house in Springfield on Lovejoy that we ended up getting from an agent whose relationship was with the estate attorney.
Bought it for $525, put like $130K into it and sold it for $800.
Yeah. Yep.
But again, estate attorneys, we do have great relationships with estate attorneys. We just don't have an account or like a working relationship with one. If you do, then you actually can't buy, kind of like a bank. If you have a relationship with a short sale bank or a bank REOs, you actually can't, as their agent, buy the property. So similar to a estate sale, if you have that relationship or listing, you can't buy it yourself. Mm-hmm. But another great source, estates, short sales, bank owns.
For you guys that have done deals out there, how have you procured those deals? Like, where have they come from for you guys? Well, and that's something too. I think that goes to like the agent, right? Like, and obviously anybody has access to the MLS via Redfin and Zillow, but if you know what you're looking for, Corey and I, we typically are putting out 5 to 10 offers a week on homes that are out there that we've been nurturing, whether it's something that's in the coming soon status, right? We just wrapped one up with that. Like, hey, here's our offer. It expires the moment you make it active. So it's kind of take it or leave it. Or those homes that have been lingering out there for 2+ weeks in today's market. We are currently working on a duplex in Delray that we bought. It was on the market for 7 days. It was an estate sale listed with an agent. They were on at $688. We knew that it was grossly overpriced, but there were 2 other offers that had come in the same time we did. We wrote at $540. We ended up getting it for $561, so $127,000 less than what they were asking a week on the market. And our budget there is roughly 110, 120, and it will probably be a 825 to 850 outsell. So like to Andy's point, I think I know there are a lot of good deals on the market. The hardest part is when you're in a very tight inventory market like we're in now to be able to get good value, just because of the amount of competition. What we have seen is recently, at least post-COVID, people are out there. Everybody is the HGTV phenomenon, right? Everybody wants to be a flipper. And we have seen people just overpaying for stuff left and right. And it's like, we'll write an offer, but we're getting blown out by 50, 60, 70 grand on some of these. And it's like, these people are going to lose their shirt. Like, because they don't, we have our efficiencies are pretty solid with our contracting. So we know what the numbers are. And we're like, well, how are they going to do something? Then you just see it on the back end 4 months later. You're like, yep. Like, no, there's no way they're making money.
We're looking at one today on the market over in Kings Park in Springfield. And Open Door bought this house last summer, I think for $675, and it's now on the market for $640, and it's been on the market for 6 months. So like Open Door, Redfin now, Zillow, iBuyer, there were a lot of competition, especially because we do market for off-market deals, and a lot of times we'd go in and compete. They're like, oh, your offer's 50 grand lower than Zillow or 50 grand lower than Open Door. I'm like, well, take it, it's a great offer. They're not gonna make any money, but good for you. And then now they have a lot of inventory sitting out there that they really bought at the peak of the market and overpaid for. But be careful because houses that are on the market right now, and also wholesalers, people are paying big numbers. There's one in Alexandria that got bid up 75 grand 3 weeks ago, and I think whoever bought it's going to take a bath. We walked the property. It's got structural issues, bamboo everywhere. The entire yard is overgrown. There's a flood zone in the back behind the bamboo that if you didn't crawl back there, you didn't see. But people bought it sight unseen, like 75 or 80 grand over list. Four Brothers, another wholesaler, sent one out today in Herndon. You guys, if you're on their list, may have seen it at $315. It's worth $395 to $400. They claim it's worth $435, and I think it's going to sell sight unseen today, well above list. So this time of year, you have to be careful because we're in the spring market where things are selling quickly. But if you buy in the spring, you need to be really cautious because if you're unloading in the fall market or winter market, you might get caught in that cycle a little bit. There are good deals to be had on the market. Just be careful not to get into a bidding war. Yeah, we've bought houses with HO liens, tax liens, IRS liens. But yeah, for sure. We don't necessarily, like HOA liens, typically in this area, they have to get really large before they can foreclose. And so usually at $100 a month, it takes a long time to get there. But we've bought plenty of houses that have mass like 3, 4, 5 year back dues, but we've never targeted ones that are delinquent. Those are harder to find, I think, on public records because HOAs are privately run. But tax, like Alice said, tax bills, even delinquent IRS taxes, tax liens are a lot easier to find.
Yep. And then, so obviously, again, for the finding of the deals, you've got wholesalers, you've got agents, you've got different types of attorneys. Those have really been the best ways. And then again, the MLS, right, just the general marketplace is really where we have found pretty much all of our deals. So then once you've identified it, you have to be able to fund it somehow, right? So how do you fund it? What are the ways to go about it, right? There's a multitude of ways that you can cut that up, and there's a different cost associated with whichever direction you decide to go. So I would say in that regard, right, you've got private money, somebody that you just know that has money that you can cut a deal with. Typically, they want to cut deals based off of equity. That's how we started, back in the day.
From 40 to 60% of profit or equity usually.
Yeah, we were given roughly about 50% of profit. We would find the deal, they would fund everything, pay cash, fund the rehab. Corey and I had no money out of pocket, but we did all the work, the management of it, the acquisition, disposition, and construction management. And then they were getting 50% of whatever the profit was. So if we made 100 grand, and their total nut that they put up front was call it 400,000 at the time. They were making 50 grand on their 400, so they turned 400 into 450 in a matter of about 6 months back when we were doing that. So that's always a viable option. The next is probably hard money. We have hard money contacts that we highly recommend. There's a lot of hard money lenders out there, but there's some that we have personal relationships with. And I would say hard money, typically what they're willing to lend, they're looking at like what the ARV is going to be. So let's just say you're looking at a house and it's $500,000 is what you could buy it for, or let's just do easier math. $400,000 is what you can buy it for. $100,000 is what you're going to put into it. So bless you. So the total amount of money you need is 500 grand. And at the end of the day, let's say it's worth $700,000. Typically, they're willing to lend up to like 70% of the ARV. A lot of them do want skin in the game. So even though like you might get a good enough deal, they might be willing to fund 100%, but typically they'll want something.
Some guys have aggressive last year of going 80 to 100% of the total deal if you got a good deal.
Yep.
But a lot of them got hung out to dry on like condo conversions, additions, builds where they over leveraged their actual loan. The permits took longer, the market shifted. So I think a lot of them have pulled back and got more conservative, as it's a little bit more volatile. But yeah, 60 to 90%. Usually most fall between like 60 and 75% of total ARV.
And what do you see like they're charging?
2 to 4 points, 2 to 5 points, maybe even now if you're newer, and anywhere from like probably 10 to 14%. So when we first started flipping houses, that money was 4 to 6 points and like 16%.
Yeah.
Because money, like cash was king, money was really hard. Lending was not readily available from 2008 to 2012 really, because a lot of banks had gotten burned on that. And so that's where like having a financial partner, even though it was expensive and costly, that's how we can maneuver more quickly when the banks weren't really lending. So cash was king in that market, and that's when we were making 70, 80, 100 grand per house. And so this investor was making great returns, and we didn't have hard money options. Weren't really, they were just as expensive, if not more back then.
Yeah.
Now it would be cheaper to go hard money than a partner.
Yep. And again, like when you're talking points, right? Like that's, if they're lending you 500 grand and they're charging you 3 points, that's 1% of the entire loan amount that they're getting up front. So $15,000 is what they're taking up front. And then you're paying interest only for the duration that you hold the deal till the time it's completed. Hello. You're good. So, you're basically, then you're paying, call it 10% for 6 months, interest only, and then they get their principal back at the end of the day. Now again, whatever your cost of money is, you're putting that into your pro forma. So, then you're just kind of backing your purchase number into that to make sure that it makes sense. So when you have good hard money contacts that can perform in a timely manner and their money's good, you already know what your rate's going to be and what your points are going to be, so you just kind of factor that in on the front end. And typically, I would say, hard money, aside from just a individual that has private funds that's giving you cash that can close in 4 to 8 hours, hard money's typically closing somewhere between like 5 to 10 days on average. Some of the larger institutions want more, but we have people that could do a 5 to 7 day close for sure. Typically, they just want to make sure that title's clean, and they're usually have their own underwriters in-house, or they have partnered with people like us, and they trust our analysis of what that deal should sell for on the back end. We kind of put together the analysis and all the numbers and say, hey, look, if our client buys this, here's what we can kind of expect that it should sell for on the back end. So, some require a hard appraisal, some don't. So that's just.
Yeah, and the cheapest way to do it, if you can get it on the market, if you can find a house that's not too beat up or worn out, is actually conventional financing. We've done some, very few, but we've done some. We've helped clients do a handful where you go in and you're cosmetic fix and flip, where you can actually get a conventional loan 25% down, and then you're funding the renovations out of pocket, but that's a much cheaper loan, and you're just basically buying it as a rental property, and then they don't necessarily disclose to the bank they're going to sell in 6 to 12 months, but that's the cheapest way to find money. And then obviously private money, and then
commercial loans,
commercial line of credits, where we've evolved to now, but it takes a couple of years and a lot of projects to kind of get under your belt to get that, that kind of track record going.
But if you can get a commercial line of credit, I know Andy's working on it with our bank as well. We have a relationship with John Marshall Bank. It's like, I would say the local regional banks are definitely the way to go, right? Typically, local regional banks, they know the local real estate market. That's where they've all made their money. And over the years, we've established a decade-long relationship now. And with John Marshall, they've allocated $8 million that we can kind of use however we want. And we're paying, a half a point? So instead of 2 to 4 points, we're paying a half a point at closing and 5.5% interest only, as opposed to 10 to 12 to 14.
Subject to change.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know how
going
they've
up.
kept the rates that low
think it's
with this
going up
current
in May.
environment. It's just a matter of like what's it going to tick up to. Yeah.
Well, you've
knock
already-
on wood. Knock on wood. They don't. it
They've
doesn't
already
get too high.
prepped us.
But then in conjunction with that, right, that's where the title company and the settlement attorneys come into play, like during the funding and the actual closing time frame of it, having those type of title companies that can move quickly, know what they're doing. Again, it's the 80-20 rule, right? Just like in anything, 80% of the 80% of the industry does 20% of the business, and 20% does 80%. So just like not every realtor, lawyer, doctor, whatever is created equally, the same goes with title companies. And I think that's really a big piece to keep, I think people kind of discount that and like, title companies, anybody can get me closed. They are not all the same.
No,
So
some of them
you
are a
know
train
what's
wreck, actually.
Are they friendly to wholesalers?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So we do all of our deals there.
Yeah.
Wholesaling, we'll buy from.
Is this particular
Yeah,
one?
Yeah.
David Robertson's great.
Okay.
Yeah, they do a
highly
great job.
recommend them.
The only thing they won't do is a double close. So we do all of our wholesale closings with them, and then what they want to see is that it's all on one HUD. So
Okay.
there's other title companies that are very wholesale friendly, which we as realtors don't believe to be ethical. But essentially, you have two different HUDs. A seller sees a HUD and a buyer sees a HUD or an Alta, and they don't cross. That's called a kind of a double close. Those Universal don't feel like those are transparent, so they won't do those, but they'll do wholesales all the time. There's other title companies that do the double, but those ones that we aren't affiliated with. But they still happen, and they work.
Yeah.
And then going back to, so the next step, let's just say, okay, you found the deal. Now we talked about funding the deal, obviously closing the deal. The next biggest piece of the puzzle, honestly, is construction, renovation, and contracting, and supplies. They're suppliers. So what we dealt with a lot during COVID, like everyone else did, was building and renovating, was supply constraints. And so we were waiting on appliances. We were waiting on tile, vanities. Vanities would come in broken. Cabinets would come in broken. Cabinets would come in with the wrong color. You're waiting 3 to 4 weeks to complete a kitchen because the Lazy Susans were broken. Just all kinds of just constant back orders and damage. And so what we did is pivoted to a storage unit, and we have a storage unit now where we stock like 3 to 5 houses worth of items to try to keep things moving. But contractors and suppliers, so we met our cabinet supplier at one of these meetups. We met our permit runner for the construction through a friend from one of the meetups here. But really, like, contractors outside of finding, the hardest thing the last 5 or 6 years has been finding the deal, not necessarily selling the deal. The second hardest part has been the construction piece of getting a reliable, honest, affordable contractor that can turn the work, turn it on time, do quality work, pull permits, and also stay on budget where you can turn a profit. So we did a house in Delray, and we're always interviewing new contractors. We're always vetting new contractors, new subs, because we call it like the honeymoon phase. We get to one subcontractor, one plumber, HVAC guy, or contractor, and we get that first year is just awesome. The second year, you're like, okay, it's not quite as good as last year, but I still like you. And then by year 3, you're like, what the F is going on? You're driving me nuts. You can't keep up. And what happens is you start to feed these contractors a lot of business, and they grow, which is great. But then all of a sudden, they can't keep up with the demand that you were giving them or we were giving them. So we're always interviewing new contractors. But we did a house in Delray last year that our total budget, we ended up around $125K. And we got 3 quotes ranging from like $115,000 to $225,000. And so the guy that came highly recommended from another realtor, who's also an investor, came in, he's like, I'll knock out the whole job in 6 weeks, start to finish. I'll use your finishes. We'll execute at the highest level. Here's all my references. So I was like, great. If this works out, like, it saves me half my week every week. It's great. Budget came in at $200,000. So at $200,000, we would have literally lost money on that house had we hired that contractor to do it for us. So finding reliable contractors who deliver what they say they will, but also are budget friendly, is probably the second hardest part of the equation over the last 5 years or so, because contractors have been so busy and they've been in such high demand that they can charge a reasonable markup and still get work. They look at investing as like the wholesale business, and clients as like the resale or retail business. And so that's something that is a big piece, and we're constantly networking for contractors. We're fortunate we've got friends that run a big construction company, design pro remodeling, that we've partnered with over the last year, and they do a lot of our jobs. They don't do all of our jobs. They do a lot of construction work for us and our clients. And while they're not the cheapest, they do deliver. They put out a quality product, and they stay on time. And so when you're looking at deals and you're evaluating deals off market or on market, you've got to really know how to estimate your construction cost in order to turn a profit. So it's one thing to know like what it's going to sell for, but you have to work all the way backwards through that pro forma to see what can I pay for this house today and what can I sell it for, what's my cost of money that we talked about earlier, how long will it take. And some contractors will tell you, oh, we'll knock this out in 6 weeks. It's a 12 to 14 week job. So if you listen to that contractor, you're going to underestimate your holding costs or how long you own the house. Or if you pay too much because you've underestimated substantially, which happens all the time, the actual scope of work, then you could potentially take a bath on the back end because you bought it for 400, you were thinking 100, that 100 turned into 180, and you still sell it for 7. That 80 that you went over budget was your only profit. So now you're hoping to break even.
Yeah, and we've learned the hard way too, right? We, again, with the amount of volume that we've done and we helped clients do, we had one 5 years ago where after we had already paid him 35 grand on a $90,000 job, he just disappeared. And we were 3 weeks in at the time and probably did $10,000 worth of work, if that.
Yeah, he walked off. We've had two, both in Fairfax. That's bad luck. $21,000 and $25,000, 2 different times that they essentially walked off with. That particular time, I remember correctly, he said his daughter had a brain aneurysm, which is terrible, and he was at the hospital for emergency surgery for a week or so. But then a week turned into 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks turned into a month. And then he just disappeared. Then we started getting calls from the subcontractor saying, hey, you need to pay me. And we're like, no, we've paid your general contractor $35,000, and he's just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. And this is our 4th or 5th job we had done with him. It wasn't like it was our first one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard from him again. I don't even know if he's.
Hope he's all right.
Hope he's okay. But you get to a point, see, there's a demo. So our bank works off of draws for our line of credit, anywhere from 4 to 6 draws. And then every contractor works a little differently. Some want 10 draws, some want 3 draws. This particular contractor wanted 4 draws, if I remember correctly. So you get a demo, then you get to the rough in, then you get to the drywall, then you get completion, and then we hold some back. Again, this is our 4th or 5th job with him, so I think he asked for a little bit more than his draw, but we're like, all right, we're good. We trust you. There's a certain amount of a gut feel, and then he just ghosted us. But yeah, when you're starting out, you absolutely, with your first interaction with the contractor, you want to have a pretty tight contract, and you want to work very strictly off of that draw schedule. We've got contractors in the room, we got builders in the room, but...
Well, and I will say, like, contractors typically that can do quality work at cost-effective pricing are not the best at paperwork. So like getting...
What paperwork?
So like, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like a handshake half the time, to be honest with you. Or we're the ones putting the actual contract together and line iteming stuff. And I will say, like, what we've seen over the years too is a lot of, like, when we interview new contractors, some people are like, oh, here's our number. And then they're like, oh, that's labor only, right? There's no materials included. You're like, dude, like this is like the numbers that we're dealing with where we're typically all in. So, you know, those type of details are definitely important. And like Corey said, if you can get like an ironclad contract with them, definitely put something in writing. But what we have found, and nowadays,
I would say half the time we write the estimate and the contract for our contractor. And again, these are guys we worked with for a long time, so they're just in the field all day, and it's just faster for us or our ops team to knock it out. But don't start that way. Like, don't start off relationship that way. If they can't get you an estimate, just keep interviewing the next contractor.
Isn't there something called bonded, where if a contractor doesn't do something, the bonding company will give you your money back or something like that?
I believe if they're Class A contractors, yes. This particular guy was a Class B contractor, and our attorney said, "Hey, you've got a legit case. We had a signed contract, but do you want to take this guy to court and chase him around for the next year? We could have, or do you just move on, cut your losses, and keep moving?" But yeah, I mean, there's just like a contractor has a mechanics lien that you can put on the house if you don't pay. There is a bondage. Andrew, do you know anything about it? I've never gone down that path. I know it exists. I've just chosen to kind of cut our losses and move forward. But like a Class C contractor, I believe, is bonded with the state, like $10,000 jobs. And if you go to Class B, it might be 50. Class A, I think, is like 150 per house. And then builders is unlimited. So there is a bond associated with that. But if you're talking like a $10,000, $20,000 delta, the amount of time that it takes to actually prove that, get it back, you're spending months of time. And for us, like, time's money. We just cut our ties, never send that referral that way again, and move on.
And Andrew, I mean, as a builder, I mean, you probably run into this with subs from time to time. I don't know how often it is, but
100%. Check references, walk the job. You can
Yeah.
see a lot if you walk their job site, and if they don't have a job site to walk, then maybe it's not the right fit.
Yeah. But I guess to Corey's point, the contracting piece, aside from finding the deal itself, is, in my opinion, the most pivotal piece of it. You find a good enough deal, the money always shows up, right? The money's the easy part now. It's really finding the deal and then having somebody that can actually make, turn it into the vision that you have within the budget that you have agreed upon within the time frame that you really need. And then once it's all done.
Well, and that's also part of the value of wholesaling, right? That's why wholesaling is still a very big part of the business, because with wholesaling, you can make a profit if you tie it up or you ratify it at the right price, and you can sell it to someone like us or a builder and not have to manage the process, that 6-month or 12-month build process. And you kind of, you take your money, you move on, and you rinse and repeat. That's why a lot of people love wholesaling, is you don't have to deal with the headaches of your subs, your contractors, your permitting.
And the ROI can be, infinite, right? If you're making 30 grand on a wholesale fee, or the 180 grand that these people made in 9 days, what does that return with zero risk?
Who knows
they assigned a contract.
Who knows
They did
their
nothing.
marketing costs?
I mean,
It's not nothing, but it's
But
still,
I mean, it's not a lot.
it's not 180 grand.
No. So I mean, I'm just saying, you look at that, and then if somebody were to flip that, they're going to make 50 on it, and it's like that's a no-brainer in terms of just time value of money. And then once you have the product completed, right? We have our in-house preferred stager here, Jen. Oh, and to that point, we've all worked with buyers, right? Like, one of the hardest things that they are not able to visualize is spatial planning. Like, well, what would I do here? How would this fit? Like, that's where that really comes into play. And if you think about it, if your average budget is for an interior flip where you're not adding square footage is $100,000, to be paying $3 to $5 grand, and you put that into your budget, you're talking, that's going to make a big difference from the marketability and just the feel of it when buyers are walking through. And I would say out of every deal we've done, with the exception of homes that have sold prior to us going on the market, we've staged every single one of them, no matter what the market was doing, whether it was a cold market where it was hard to sell back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, or whether it was the hottest market we've ever seen in 2020, 2021, we still stage every single one of our properties.
Buyers want to buy a lifestyle.
Yeah, you're selling lifestyle,
That,
100%.
exactly what it is.
Yep.
For sure.
And when you're looking at, and everyone's just searching on Zillow and Redfin, right? All of our clients, every buyer, and it's like when you look at two homes side by side, if they're identical and one's staged and one is not, it's
Oh my
no
gosh.
question which one's going to stand out.
Right.
Yeah, and we tell our sellers too, like, it's different now, right? So like Riley and Rachel are here to do a great job with photos, videography, Matterports, 3D walkthroughs, right? So we have to get a buyer off their couch, whereas you're buying real estate in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, like you were selling off of binders. You didn't have iPhones, right? We had Blackberries and Nokias. So before, you would have to leave your couch to drive by and see the curb appeal of a house. Now the curb appeal has to get them off the couch. So if it doesn't photograph well, it doesn't video well, they're not going to even come see it, because they can see everything they need from their phone. And so everything that we do on our projects and our clients' homes is kind of making sure that those photos, those videos are top notch to get them out of their house to come see the house.
Day 30 on the market, they're still lingering out there. They don't want to drop the price, but it's like, oh, should I stage now? And it's like the old adage is true. You don't get a second chance at a first impression. So it's like, sure, we can stage now, but like, the entire world knows you've been on the market for 30 days. We can have new photos taken. It's not going to be like this magic wand that we're waving at this point in time. So like, do it from the jump, do it right, and the results will come.
Well, not to belabor the point of staging, but also as an investor, like my investor hat, like these homes that we're renovating are built in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So they feel like new product and new construction, but they're not. The floors are unlevel. The tile is an 18th of an inch out, or the drywall is not 100% perfect. The plaster is old. So by staging a house, it also not only brings that emotion, but it also helps disguise some of the imperfections that these older homes have. And it still feels like a new home. Like Banju's building a brand new home, you can build it 100% square. If we're doing an addition on a 1938 bungalow and we're trying to mimic, mirror it to brand new construction, that's never going to be perfect. But by staging it, it kind of distracts the eye a little bit from some of those little imperfections.
That's right.
And it kind of looks at the whole cohesive package instead of like, oh, did you see this little crack, or did you see this trim is out of level? And I think that goes a long way too when
Totally.
you're working on old homes.
And then obviously once you have the beautiful package together, I think the last piece is obviously partnering with a realtor that knows what they're doing. I think, again, obviously we are builders and investors. We also are full-time realtors, but I can tell you that those agents that know what they're doing can get more money for their clients than just a typical agent that's going to put it up in there and hope for a quick sale. To that point, I mean, just a couple of them just now. We had the deal that Allison brought to us in Falls Church. It was a big project, right? We bought it for $840. We put 350 grand into it to make it what we needed. We went coming soon at 1.35, and we had a couple groups that were circling, and we were able to get them to bring us a sight unseen offer. We had a couple offers at 1.4, 1.45, and just by blindly negotiating, we were able to get somebody to come up to 1.5, waive everything, and we closed yesterday on it. So it's like, knowing what you're doing and how to play the game is really important. Again, and not all realtors are created equal, and there's a bunch of great realtors in this room, but that's something that is, worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. And I've seen it just on the other side of deals that we've seen out there. Some agents that have left money on the table for their clients because they did not play it right, and you're just like, oh my God, they could have gotten 50 grand more easily.
This house in Springfield, supposedly, and I was not involved in the back end of it, supposedly the seller had a realtor. This realtor called this agent investor, and they got it. So I'm like, if you got it for $455, that realtor gave their client terrible advice, right? They left 150 grand on the table easily. So it's getting that advice, but also as a good realtor partner, as an investor, you want to look for realtors that are investor friendly, because a lot of realtors are not. They don't want to work with investors. They don't necessarily understand the investment game.
They don't get the game.
Either they don't get it or they don't want to be bothered by it, right? And it's normally they don't get it, so they just act like they're too busy. But you want that realtor, and again, there's plenty of the good realtors in this room that can help you analyze the project from start to finish. So like, you make your money when you buy. So if you have a realtor that doesn't know that neighborhood, doesn't know the ins and out of that zip code or that community, that school system, a $50,000 mishap on the ARV is your profit most of the time. So making sure you're dialed in with the right realtor, real estate team, whoever it is, going into the deal to make sure you're buying it right. Because once you buy it, you own that, whether it's a problem or a profit. Like, that's your deal. So making sure you're doing your due diligence and they know the proper ARV, and then now it's up to you to kind of help dial in which do I need to buy it for with all these other pieces in it.
Oh man,
Good questions.
honestly, so we have these sessions because we're big proponents of building wealth through real estate, and we want to be able to pass that along to others and just kind of share. Like, we really do like to come from a place of contribution, and then we want to be a resource for anybody in the room for whatever they want to do real estate wise. And then for us personally, if you guys have deals, we can be a buyer. If there's anything that you need, real estate related, or friends and family, like, we would be happy to serve them. But that's really what it's about. Like, we're big on like just building relationships, and maybe you meet John or you meet Allison, and it's like, it's just trying to get cohesive, symbiotic relationships going is really kind of what we're all about.
Just build a community where we can share deals, share resources, invest in real estate, make money together, learn.
Yeah.
Good questions though. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
You're coming out firing. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, where do you find people for your dream team? To your point, here, right? Like, we've done a lot of deals with people in this room and in other rooms very much like this. So I think when you bring like-minded people together that are kind of trying to work towards a common goal, good things can happen. And, we've built expanded teams. Again, we have our vendor list. And again, to that point, like, if you're like, hey, I need an electrician, even if it's just for your house, like, right, we have somebody that we know will do quality work at cost-effective pricing, not take advantage of you, and at least it's an option, right? You can, shop them around, but that's really the biggest piece for us. And then these just gotta go like step by step, right? Like, how do you keep in touch with people? How do you manage your database, right? Like, obviously, we have a couple different companies from our real estate team, our building and investing team. We do some wholesaling. We have a CRM that helps kind of just keep everything siloed, and we know, like, when we touch those people last, when did we last hang out with them? We're big, old school, and just calling people, calling and texting, right? Hey man, hey Lawrence, how's it going? How's life, right? Boom, and then...
You never call us back, by the way, man.
Yeah. But
What CRM do you use?
Follow Up Boss.
we use Follow Up Boss.
We use Salesforce for a long time. I mean, you can literally start with a Google Sheet. A spreadsheet is fine when you're getting started. There's thousands of CRMs out there. You don't have to go invest a ton of money, but just having a system. Like, when we first started, to be honest with you, I remember our business partner, who was our financial partner at the time, laughed at us because we had this is like 2011, 12. We had like those business card folders, and we came in and it was all stacked up. We're like, because we just go to meetups like this, like, a couple times a week and meet people and network, grab coffee, grab a drink. And he's like, what is this? We're like, it's our Rolodex. And he's like, he kind of laughed. He's like, I remember when I first started my first business.
I mean,
Kind of like, you
dude, it
child.
was also 2009. The first iPhone came out in 2007. So it was like part of the times,
again,
too.
using technology, right? But like that, we don't have those binders anymore. But you got a cell phone. Like you start with Google Sheet. Follow Up Boss is great. We use Salesforce for a long time. That's fantastic as well. But there's tons of different resources. There's just staying organized and then staying in relationships. And those just kind of help to remind you to stay in a relationship because we haven't seen each other in 6 months or we haven't talked in 3 months. And again, it's grabbing coffee. Like it's putting the time in and the relationships. Like we've done plenty of deals over coffee and drinks that like those relationships originated from these rooms.
Yeah. I mean, obviously calling and texting is one thing, but like getting face to face and like belly to belly, like that's really how you build a relationship, right? And I think that we've done a good job, and I think most people that have been successful, you know a ton of people in the game, and it's because you meet with them, you talk with them,
Right.
So I think that that's something that we've been a big proponent of. And then lastly is emails. Don't discount emails, right? So we have a wholesaling company called Easy House Buyers. We send out mailers. We do SEO search, optimization, call texting. We do pretty much everything you can to try to find these off-market opportunities. But we also have an email campaign where we will embed videos, or sometimes it's just a very simple email of, hey, we are a cash buyer. Do you have anything that we can buy that would, here's kind of the criteria. We can close in 7 days, completely as is, no commissions, no nothing. We sent out, and we kind of send that out every 3 to 4 weeks, right? And we'll hit, I'm sure Lawrence gets it, Allison gets it. Like we have agents that we send it to, we have wholesalers that we send it to, and we have other contacts that we send.
Get it.
You'll probably unsubscribe.
That's because we meet you face to face.
Belly to belly.
Belly to belly. Exactly.
Well, yeah, those emails do work over time. So it's an email campaign that's gone out for years. And so the house that we're under contract on right now, one of the very few we haven't staged in the last 5 years, this was like in the height of the uncertainty, so middle of fall. So we send out this email. It's an agent we've known for years. We hadn't seen him maybe in a year.
But he works with a lot of builders.
Works with a lot of builders, and this is a lot that would have sold for $1 million, maybe $1.05 million in North Arlington. Huge lot for North Arlington standards. And he called about 2 hours after that email went out and said, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. I want your help with something. I've got this lot. It's a listing. My clients don't want to go on the market. I had 2 builders interested in $1 million, $1.05 million, and now all of a sudden it was just gone quiet on me. This is like September, October, when things were really uncertain. Rates had just hit 7%. And he's like, I'm shocked. Like I could have sold this dirt the last 3 years in a minute, and now everybody's going quiet. Are you interested? So we walked it. Within 48 hours, had a ratified contract at $875. So they really originally had $1.05 million verbal, then they walked away, then they came to $1 million, and they were relocating across country to Texas. The house was paid off. They needed to sell this house in order to get, buy their dream home that they were downsizing to eventually. And so we made a deal, and at that time the uncertainty was really high. People didn't know what the spring market was going to bring.
Rates had just hit 7.25, right? People were like, "What's going on?"
Inventory was 2 to 3 months, which is huge for our area. And so, anyways, long story short, the emails do work, the texts work, the coffee works, and the mailers work. This house, we're now under contract, and again, it's been a massive renovation. It's right in the middle of the missing middle. We can talk about that later. That Arlington County is going through the rezoning. So there is some development play on this particular lot as well now that wasn't there 2 weeks ago. But we're under contract for 1.7. And so that it will, if it closes, will be one of our most.
It will be our most profitable job, almost double than anything we've ever done from an automated email. So emails work.
Yeah, emails work, texts work, calls work, coffees, drinks.
The mix works.
We spend more time in happy hour than coffee shops, but they all work, whatever works.
Yeah, exactly. We're more of the afternoon drinking guys as opposed to the morning, but they all work.
But yeah, there's just, there's a variety of ways to do it, but it's really, again, just growing your database, growing your contacts, and staying in touch with people. And they always tell you as you're growing a business, like our mentors say, like in the beginning, Gary says this all the time, like in the beginning, you normally have more time than money. And as your business evolves and your business grows and you get further in your career, you typically have more money than time. And so there's no right way or wrong way to do it. Like all these campaigns and mailers and ISAs are costly, but we have less time than we did when we started out. We were doing all that legwork ourselves, and as things evolve, you make choices. Do I hire people to do this with us, or do I keep doing it myself? And so if you're starting out, don't go spend a bunch of money. Don't go buy fancy CRMs. Just go put in the work. door knock. Like we have another house that we're buying on Friday that we door knocked 3 or 4 streets, Sean and I, around one of our projects. We sent out mailers, we called, we texted. Yeah, they almost kicked us off of their front porch for the first 20 minutes, and after a while we built some rapport. We're closing on that house on Friday, and it's down the street from another house that we're just wrapping up. And so that was just good old-fashioned door knocking and some postcards. They're relocating to Richmond. Timing was right. They have a house that hasn't been updated in 40 years. They don't want to update it. We talked about the market. They're like, I just want to move. It's kind of a hoarder situation. We're going to build a big addition on that house. And so any of these things work. It's just a matter of putting in the time and the reps.
Yeah. And I think like to this thing, right, it's like having a plan and then being consistent with that plan, right? You know, and I think that's where having the couple different ways of hitting these people, from the texting, calling, a monthly email that's going out, and then trying to get some meetings. Corey and I typically, we're trying to each meet, you know, between 3 and 5 people every week to get a face-to-face meeting in some regard, whether it's people that are looking to, you know, if we can each have a meeting a day from Monday through Friday, you know, that's 10 face-to-face meetings. Something's going to come from that. When you're building out your dream team, like one of the biggest benefits outside of these folks being able to help you achieve your goals, you're also able to kind of push them in their services, right? Like there's nothing better than being able to support people that you know, like, and love. And it's like, hey, you know, here's our go-to stager, or here's our contractors. And you're really just helping people. And we really look at this as like partnerships, right? There might not always be a financial interest, or sometimes there can be a financial interest, but it's like, hey, how can we help you? And, you know, at the same time, we know when something comes up or we need them, they're going to be able to help us too. So that's really the way that we kind of approach it.
Yeah, and that's kind of 2.0. So like that's like the evolution, right? So you meet a contractor, you meet a vendor, a landscaper, a stager, and then you kind of develop that relationship, that cadence over a couple of years. And then as you start growing together, like, hey, if I send you referrals, can you send me referrals back, right? If I send you a client, send us a client back. And that's kind of that organic growth. And I think what kind of it's referring to here is Dream Team 2.0 is as both your business continue to grow, then you can start referring more and more business. Or you see a lot of the different like training and stuff out there that, hey, click here and you'll get a 20% off code, right? And that's just basically driving business and referrals from your website back to other businesses. But that's kind of like further down the road.
But then again, like to that point, like don't discount like being able to like do partnerships with people, right? Now that we have these construction like connections, right? We'll partner with them on some deals. Sometimes they'll bring something to us and say, hey, do you guys want to do this with us? Or we'll be like, hey, we're at capacity and we can't, you know, we need some additional money, or we need, if you guys want to come in on this, like let's just do it as a joint venture, and then kind of let them run with it. So there's a lot of ways that it can really, really grow and go hand in hand. And I think that's the biggest thing, honestly. It's like, how can we help provide people additional income, right? How can we get Jen more people? How can we find Andrew more lots? How can we bring David at UT more closings, right? Whether it's from us or other investor clients. So I think that's really what, you know, what we do.
Yeah, just building relationships. And if you help grow other people's businesses, hopefully, like we talked about earlier, they'll help you grow yours as well. And so if Allison or Jen have a listing that's beat up, like, you know what, let me call these guys and see. Yep. Sometimes we buy them, sometimes you use us as an offer to get the listing, you know? It's just building those relationships and helping each other out.
Yeah, and we have the room for like another 15 minutes, so we definitely want to leave enough time to network, people to meet, and then obviously if you guys have any questions for us,
Let's talk about the missing middle for a second.
Yeah,
sure.
Corey's our missing middle specialist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is this recorded?
No.
Corey, sorry, it's literally a thing. It's an article on my screen.
I'm far from a specialist, but yeah, let's talk about it. I'm researching it. Like we have
like, there's a cap, I think, of
58.
50 properties a year.
58 for the first 5 years.
58
for the year.
lots.
What is that as a percentage of the lots available?
Oh, man.
Is that nothing?
It's not
It's
much.
nothing.
It's not much. So 58 permits per year, and that's basically 58 lots per year for the first 5 years. So it's going to be a race to get permits in for the first year or two for sure. We've talked to a few landlord clients and builder clients this week that are already working on permitting. This particular house we just talked about is 1.5 lots, so high likelihood that 7 to 9 units would get approved on this lot. So once that got passed, our dirt was worth about as much as the house, but we had just put $350,000 into this house, so kind of had a decision to make there. But yeah, there's going to be 58 permits per year for the first 5 years, and then they're supposed to cascade or remove it. But what we don't know is how's the county going to react over the 275 that are built. Probably what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of fumbles along the way because builders don't know how to build them. Engineers are still catching up with the zoning. And so they're leaning heavily on like Minneapolis as a big part. Seattle did this as well, where they did different upzoning.
How do you price it? Because you don't know if you're gonna get the permit. Like, do you get the permit first and then, like, because the land is worth, you can bid a lot more on
Yeah.
land if you have the permit.
100%, yeah. We have a client that just sold a lot for 900, and that lot probably is worth $1 million to $1.1 million now 2 weeks later because of the potential of these being built. If it was a slam dunk permits in hand, you're probably worth 1.2, 1.3. But you're not, it's going to be a risk, and most engineers are saying budget 12 to 24 months before you can expect to have plans in hand.
Oh, I see.
So
It's a
Exactly.
long-term play.
It's a long-term play. So this particular house, we would have put a tenant in it for a year, maybe 18 months while we were working on permitting.
Oh.
So to answer your question, it's a very loaded one, and there's already people that are working on those plans right now as we sit here. So my guess is the 58 will probably go quick. I don't know, Andrew, is there anything you want to add to that?
What is 58? Like, is it 58?
I think Andrew's building
5,000?
54 of them right now, aren't you?
Like, what percentage of lots
Oh.
is that?
How many lots?
What did they give to the missing middle? What percent?
Oh,
Of like the yearly lots?
I mean,
Or permits or something?
because you're talking, it's single-family lots, right, in Arlington County. So there's way more than 5,000.
If you're in the MLS, you
right?
can pull up in tax records. I don't
Yeah.
know. Probably 10 to 15,000. I don't know what that number is, but it's a small percentage. And not all lots qualify, right? So we own a couple multifamily lots in Arlington. We own a couple single-family houses in Arlington. So we were tracking it pretty closely because we have it's a big deal for us as well. But if you own a duplex or a triplex or anything that's already zoned multi, that is not affected. So we have duplexes and triplexes that I was hoping they would include ADUs in that. So if we have a 3-unit here and a quarter-acre lot, could we build another accessory dwelling unit in the back or expand our building, double the size of the existing footprint, put 6 units in? All of that for the time being was excluded. So it's single-family residential lots. I think R6 or more. I think R5 is excluded too. Do you remember that? Did I read that right?
Something like that.
And then from there, it's like R6 to R10, and there's a bunch of different zoning regulations that just rolled out on it. So I don't claim to be an engineer or a builder, but we've been tracking it as closely as we can so that we can advise our clients as well.
And then closer to like actual mass transit, metro, that type of stuff has a higher density, I believe, to where you can get more units on those potentially.
Well, no, not more. It's parking, yeah. So
Yeah.
parking requirements, I heard this from a client yesterday that they've now done a revision already that says parking is back. But what they had announced last week is within a close proximity, I think defined by a half mile, you didn't have to have parking to get the units, but if you're more than a half mile away from mass transit, you do. But it's hard, good luck. It's going to be tough also to sell a condo or rent a $3,500 a month apartment or $2,000 apartment without parking, especially when it's new and luxury. So I think people are still figuring it out. But it's exciting. It's stressful for a lot of people. It's different. It's change.
Yeah.
It's not work, though.
All right, sweet. Well, thank you for coming. Obviously, we'll be back here next month with a different topic. And same time, same place. And just check Meetup, and we're going to be obviously sending out invites and stuff.